It was a particularly mild afternoon in Cary Park. Seattle had those surprises. The day began with a curtain of fog, but by noon, the sun was present, warming the hearts of those who ventured outdoors. It was one of those days I liked to ride my bike, feel the wind on my face, and appreciate the beauty of the trees lazily swaying. I parked my bike near an old oak tree, a spot where I always rested and read a bit. However, that day something different caught my attention. There was a note attached to the handlebars of my bike. The handwriting was delicate, almost ethereal, and the paper, with a texture reminiscent of old times, seemed carefully chosen. I picked up the note with curiosity and began to read. In the midst of the city's chaos, I find peace in poetry. Words whispered to the wind, dancing like a gentle breeze. If only one day in verses I could find myself. I was fascinated by the depth and beauty of the words. Who could write something so touching? I felt an uncontrollable urge to discover the author's identity. I stored the note in my pocket, like a precious treasure, and decided that I needed help to solve this mystery. That night, I went to my best friend Emily's apartment. She had always been my confidant, the person I could count on in any situation. I showed her the note, hoping she would share my enthusiasm. "Emily, look at this." I handed her the note. "I found it attached to my bike in the park today." She read it carefully, her blue eyes shining with interest. "This is beautiful, Nathan. Who do you think wrote it?" "I have no idea," I replied, feeling the excitement grow. "But I want to find out. I need to know who this person is." Emily smiled and put her hand on my shoulder. "Then go after it. Sometimes life offers us little mysteries so that we can find something bigger. Follow your curiosity." It was the encouragement I needed. I decided I would return to the park every day, hoping to find more notes or, who knows, the author herself. For a week, I went to Cary Park religiously. I sat on the same bench, read my books, but nothing new happened. I began to think maybe I was chasing an illusion. Until, exactly 1 week later, I found another note attached to my bike's handlebars. This one was even more enigmatic than the first. "The stars fall silent in the dark night. In each one a secret wish. Maybe one day our paths will cross under the same starry sky." I felt a shiver run down my spine. There was something magical and mysterious about those words. Who was this person who could touch my soul with so few lines? I decided I wouldn't rest until I discovered her identity. Emily was even more excited about the new note. "This is amazing, Nathan," she exclaimed after reading the poem. "You have to keep looking. Maybe the next clue is closer than you think." And so, my quest began to take on more defined contours. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but each note found was a small victory, a step closer to unraveling this poetic mystery that had invaded my life. And deep down, I felt that this journey would lead me to something much greater than I could imagine. The second note was there, attached to my bike's handlebars, as if left by a ghost. The words, as enigmatic and beautiful as those in the first note, referenced the Blue Moon Cafe. I decided it was time to follow this new clue. That afternoon, I went to the Blue Moon Cafe, a cozy place with an atmosphere that seemed to invite creativity to flow. The smell of fresh coffee mixed with the light fragrance of cinnamon made the environment welcoming. Upon entering, my eyes were immediately drawn to the barista behind the counter. She had a warm smile and seemed to know all the regular customers by name. "Hello, welcome. What can I do for you today?" she asked in a friendly tone. "Hi, I'd like a cappuccino, please," I replied, trying not to appear too eager. While she prepared my order, I took the opportunity to ask, "Have you noticed anyone leaving poetic notes in the park recently?" She looked up at me, a little surprised by the question but still smiling. "Poetic notes? No, not that I've noticed, but it sounds like an interesting thing to do." I thanked her and took my cappuccino, sitting at a table near the window. I began to frequent the cafe more regularly, hoping to find some clue about the mysterious author of the notes. I observed the customers, trying to decipher who could be the person behind the words that intrigued me so much. One afternoon, while reading a book, I felt something under my coffee cup. I lifted it, and to my surprise, there was a third note. It read, "I am closer than you think." My heart raced. Had the author been watching me closely all this time? I went back to the counter and tried talking to the barista again, whose name I had discovered to be Lily. "Lily, are you sure you didn't see anyone leave this here?" I asked, showing her the note. She looked at the paper and then at me, shaking her head. "Sorry, Nathan, but I really didn't notice anything." Maybe you should talk to the group of writers that meets here on Thursdays. They might know something. I thanked her for the tip and decided I would join the next meeting of the group. The following Thursday, I sat at a table near the group, trying not to seem too anxious. They discussed poetry and literature with contagious passion. It was then that a young writer named Caleb, who seemed to be one of the most active members, approached me. "Hi, you're new here, aren't you?" "I'm Caleb," he said, extending his hand. "Yes, I am. My name is Nathan. Actually, I'm trying to find out who is leaving these poetic notes in the park and now at the cafe," I replied, showing him the latest note. Caleb read the note and smiled. "Interesting. I haven't heard about this, but I'll keep an eye out. Maybe someone in the group knows something." During the meeting, I mentioned the notes and noticed that a girl named Sophie became visibly nervous. I decided I should talk to her later. When the meeting ended, I followed Sophie discreetly until I saw her meet up with Caleb. Curious, I approached the two of them. "Sophie, can I talk to you for a moment?" She looked at me, surprised and a little anxious. "Sure, Nathan. What is it?" "Do you know anything about the notes? I saw you get nervous when I mentioned them," I said, trying to be direct without sounding accusatory. Sophie looked at Caleb, who sighed and answered for her. "Actually, Nathan, Sophie is writing poems, but they are for her boyfriend. I was helping her with some ideas." I felt a mix of disappointment and relief. At least I had an answer, even if it wasn't what I expected. I thanked them both and left the cafe, feeling a bit lost. The next day, Emily, noticing my sadness, invited me for a walk in the park. "Come on, Nathan. Maybe some fresh air will do you good," she suggested. As we walked through Cary Park, I expressed my frustrations. "Emily, I feel like I'm chasing shadows. Maybe it's better to give up." She stopped and looked me in the eyes. "Nathan, maybe the author of the notes is trying to tell you something deeper than it seems. Don't give up yet." It was then that I noticed a fourth note attached to a nearby tree. I picked it up and read it. This one had a more personal and intimate tone, as if the author really wanted to get to know me. The words made me reconsider my decision to give up. "Maybe you're right, Emily. Maybe it's really worth continuing to search," I said, feeling a new wave of determination wash over me. Emily smiled, and together we continued our walk, now with a new hope in our hearts. I was sitting in my usual spot at the Blue Moon Cafe, observing the customers around me. The idea that the author of the poetic notes could be nearby filled me with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Emily, my confidant and best friend, had encouraged me to follow this quest, and I was determined to find the person behind the words that touched my heart so deeply. That afternoon, I decided to approach a group of writers who frequently gathered at the cafe to discuss poetry and literature. I timidly approached, holding my coffee firmly, and asked if I could join them. They welcomed me with open arms, as if I were one of them, and soon I found myself involved in an animated conversation about verses and rhymes. "I'm Nathan, an amateur writer," I introduced myself. "Nice to meet you, Nathan. I'm Caleb," replied a young man with messy hair and bright eyes, extending his hand. "And these are Alex, Mariana, and Sophie." Sophie. Her name sounded like music to my ears. She was a girl with red hair and green eyes, who seemed to hide behind a notebook. Something about her immediately caught my attention, an aura of mystery that made me wonder if she could be the author of the notes. Over the following meetings, Caleb and I grew quite close. I discovered he also had a passion for poetry, and together, we shared our writings and discussed our favorite authors. I felt more confident each day, believing I was closer to unraveling the mystery of the notes. "Caleb, have you ever heard of anyone leaving poetic notes around Cary Park?" I asked casually, trying not to seem obsessed. "No, I've never heard of that, but it sounds interesting. Have you found any?" He seemed genuinely curious. "Yes, I've found 3 so far, each one more enigmatic than the last," I replied, taking the notes from my pocket and showing them to him. He read them attentively, furrowing his brow in concentration. "Wow, this is really deep. Whoever it is, they're a talented poet." That night, during one of the group meetings, I decided to mention the notes to everyone. I wanted to see their reactions, hoping to catch a clue. "I wanted to share something with you. I've been finding these poetic notes in Cary Park and at the Blue Moon Cafe," I began, watching their expressions. "Has anyone seen anything like this before?" Everyone seemed intrigued, but it was Sophie who caught my attention. She became visibly nervous, shifting uncomfortably in her chair and avoiding my gaze. That sparked a suspicion in me. Could she be the author? Determined to find out the truth, I started following Sophie discreetly after the meeting. She left the cafe in a hurry, and I kept a safe distance, trying not to be noticed. To my surprise, she met up with Caleb on a nearby corner. They talked for a few minutes, and I couldn't hear what they were saying. However, Caleb's expression was serious, and Sophie seemed distressed. The next day, I confronted Caleb about what I had seen. We were sitting at a table in the Blue Moon Cafe, and I went straight to the point. "Caleb, I saw you with Sophie last night. What was going on?" My voice was filled with tension. He sighed and looked at me with a guilty expression. "Nathan, I need to confess something. Sophie asked for my help to write those poems, but they weren't for you. They were for her boyfriend. She's trying to win him back, and I was just helping her." The disappointment hit me like a bucket of cold water. Everything I hoped for and imagined crumbled in an instant. "I'm sorry, man. I really thought you knew." Caleb seemed genuinely regretful. "It's okay, Caleb. Thanks for telling me the truth," I replied, trying to hide my frustration. With a heavy heart, I decided it was time to abandon my quest. The author of the notes wasn't who I expected, and the disappointment was overwhelming. Emily, noticing my sadness, invited me for a walk in the park, hoping to lift my spirits. "Nathan, maybe the author of the notes is trying to say something deeper than it seems. Don't give up so easily," said Emily, with an encouraging smile. As we walked through Cary Park, I found a fourth note attached to my bike. This time, the words had a more personal and intimate tone. Something inside me reignited the hope, and I knew I couldn't give up so easily. The search continued, and I was more determined than ever to discover the truth. After seeing Sophie meet with Caleb, a mix of disappointment and frustration overwhelmed me. I was sure I was one step away from unraveling the mystery of the poetic notes, but reality proved quite different. Confronting Caleb became a necessity, and that's exactly what I did the next day. "Caleb, I need to talk to you," I began, trying to stay calm. "I saw you meeting with Sophie after the meeting yesterday. What's going on?" He looked at me with a confused expression, but soon sighed, as if he knew there was no point in hiding the truth. "Nathan, I knew you were looking for the author of the notes, but you're on the wrong track," he said calmly. "What do you mean by that?" I asked, feeling a knot form in my stomach. "Sophie is writing poems, yes, but not for you. She's writing them for her boyfriend. I was just helping with some ideas." Those words hit me like a bucket of cold water. All the emotion, expectation, and hope I had been nurturing collapsed in an instant. "So, all of this was for nothing?" I murmured, more to myself than to him. Caleb placed a hand on my shoulder in a gesture of solidarity. "Nathan, life is full of mysteries and surprises. Maybe the answer you're looking for is where you least expect it." Disheartened, I decided to give up the search. I went home feeling empty, thinking that journey had been a waste of time. In the following days, I tried to distract myself with work and other activities, but the melancholy seemed to follow me wherever I went. Emily, my best friend, noticed my sadness. On a sunny afternoon, she showed up at my door with a welcoming smile and an irresistible proposal. "Nathan, let's take a walk in the park. I think you need some fresh air." Reluctant but with no better alternatives, I agreed. We walked through Cary Park in silence for a while, each lost in our own thoughts. Finally, Emily broke the silence. "You really liked the notes, didn't you?" I nodded. "Yes, they were special. They were like a window into someone's soul." Emily smiled softly. "Maybe the author was trying to say something deeper than it appears. Maybe you just need to look from another perspective." As we walked, something caught my attention. A fourth note, attached to my favorite bench in the park. My heart raced. Hesitant, I picked up the note and opened it. Sometimes what we're looking for is right in front of our eyes, but we're so focused on the search that we don't see it. The tone was more personal and intimate than the previous ones. The words resonated deeply within me, as if the author knew exactly what I was feeling. I sat on the bench, holding the note with trembling hands. "Emily, what do you think of this?" I asked, showing her the note. She read it attentively, a gleam of understanding appearing in her eyes. "Nathan, maybe you shouldn't give up so easily. Sometimes the answers come when we stop searching so desperately." I remained silent, reflecting on her words. A new hope was growing inside me, a feeling that maybe I had missed something important by focusing so much on the search. I decided I couldn't give up. There was something deeper and more meaningful in the notes, something that still needed to be discovered. "You're right, Emily, I can't give up now," I declared with determination. She smiled, giving me a tight hug. "I'm with you, Nathan. We'll figure this out together." With a new perspective and renewed hope, I felt closer to solving the mystery than ever before. And this time, I wouldn't be alone. The fourth note was different. The words were more personal, more intimate. I felt like I was getting closer, yet I felt lost in a labyrinth of emotions. The words reverberated in my mind as I read and reread each verse. I decided I couldn't give up now. I needed to find out who was behind these notes. The new clue led me to a local bookstore called Pages of Time. It was a small, cozy store with dark wooden shelves that seemed to hold secrets from a bygone era. The smell of old books mixed with freshly ground coffee filled the air, creating an environment that seemed perfect for a writer hungry for inspiration. As soon as I entered, I was greeted by an elderly man with gray hair and round glasses. His name was Mr. Harper. He greeted me with a kind smile. "Can I help you with something?" he asked, adjusting his glasses. "Yes," I replied, trying to hide my anxiety. "I'm looking for a rare edition of a poetry book. I heard I might find it here." Mr. Harper smiled, as if he already knew exactly what I was talking about. He led me to a shelf at the back of the store and pulled out a book with a worn brown leather cover. He handed it to me carefully, as if it were a treasure. "This is the book you're looking for," he said. I opened the book and, to my surprise, found a handwritten dedication on the first page. The words were familiar, the style unmistakable. It was the same handwriting as the notes I had been receiving. My heart raced. "Who wrote this?" I asked, my voice trembling with emotion. Mr. Harper looked at me for a moment, as if assessing whether he should reveal the secret. Finally, he sighed and said, "She's a regular customer here. A charming young lady. She always comes here to read and write." "Can you describe her?" I asked, feeling I was about to discover the truth. Mr. Harper nodded. "She has wavy brown hair and eyes that always seem to be dreaming. She's very kind and loves poetry. Her name is Emily." Emily. My best friend. I was speechless, trying to process the revelation. How had I not realized it before? The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in my mind. I thanked Mr. Harper and left the bookstore, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. I needed to see Emily. I needed to understand why she did this. I ran to the park where we used to meet and found her sitting on our usual bench reading a book. "Emily?" I called, my voice still filled with surprise. She looked at me, her eyes widening slightly. "Nathan, what happened? You look agitated." I sat beside her, still breathless. "I found out the notes. You wrote them all." She was silent for a moment before sighing and closing the book. "Yes, it was me. I didn't know how to tell you what I felt. I thought the poems could express it better." "Why?" I asked, still trying to understand. "Why didn't you tell me directly?" Emily looked down, nervously fiddling with her fingers. "I was afraid of ruining our friendship. Afraid you didn't feel the same." I held her hands, making her look into my eyes. "Emily, you are my best friend. But you're also much more than that to me. Your notes touched me in a way I can't even describe. I just wanted to know who this special person was." She smiled, a tear rolling down her face. "I love you too, Nathan. I always have." At that moment, I realized that the journey I began to find the author of the notes was actually a journey to find the true Emily. And I found not only the author of the notes, but also the person I had always loved, even without knowing it. I leaned in and kissed her softly, feeling that all the pieces had finally come together. Our friendship was transforming into something new, something deep and exciting. And so, on the park bench where it all began, our hearts truly met, starting a new chapter in our lives. Did you enjoy our story? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any episodes of our exciting and mysterious series. Leave your comment below and tell us, what did you think of the mysterious notes? Who do you think would be the next to receive one? Share this video with your friends and family so they too can be enchanted by this story.